Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls during the 25th of Tevet, also January 25th, 5785, 2025, in the respective calendars, for Parashat Vayeira. This week we'll be continuing into the 13th through 15th chapters of the book of Shoftim, Judges, and learning a little bit about what's to come. You can follow along in English via Chabad.org. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody I'm not a professional Torah scholar or scripture scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Tanakh. Let's begin. Chapter 13, verse 1, Shoftim. And the children of Israel continued to do that which displeased the Lord. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines 40 years. And there was one man from Zorah, from the family of Danites, whose name was Manoach, and his wife was barren, and had not borne. And an angel of the Lord appeared to the woman, and said to her, Behold, now you are barren, and have not borne, and you shall conceive and bear a son. Consequently, beware now, and do not drink wine or strong drink, and do not eat any unclean things. Because you shall conceive and bear a son, and a razor shall not come upon his head, for a Nazarite to God shall the lad be from the womb, and he will begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. And the woman came and said to her husband, saying, A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of an angel of God, very awesome. And I did not ask him from where he was, and his name he did not tell me. And he said to me, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and now do not drink wine and strong drink, and do not eat any unclean thing, for a Nazarite to God shall the lad be, from the womb until the day of his death. And Manoach entreated the Lord, and said, Please, O Lord, the man of God whom you sent, let him come now again to us, and teach us what we shall do to the lad that will be born. And God hearkened to the voice of Manoach, and the angel of God came again to the woman, and she was sitting in the field, and Manoach her husband was not with her. And the woman hurried and ran, and told her husband, and she said to him, Behold, there has appeared to me the man that came to me that day. And Manoach arose and went after his wife, and he came to the man, and said to him, Are you the man that spoke to the woman? And he said, I am. And Manoach said, Now your words will come forth. What shall be the rule for the lad and his doing? And the angel of the Lord said to Manoach, Of all that I said to the woman shall she beware. From all that comes out of the grapevine shall she not eat, and wine or strong drink she may not drink, and any unclean thing she may not eat. All that I commanded her shall she observe. And Manoach said to the angel of the Lord, Let us take you in now, and prepare for you a kid goat. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoach, If you take me in, I will not eat of your bread, and if you will make a burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord. For Manoach did not know that he was an angel of the Lord. And Manoach said to the angel of the Lord, What is your name, that when your word will come, we may do you honor? And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why do you presently ask for my name, since it is hidden? And Manoach took the kid goat and the meal offering, and offered it upon the rock to the Lord. And the angel did wondrously, and Manoach and his wife looked on. And it was, when the flame went up from upon the altar toward heaven, and the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoach and his wife looked on, and they fell on their faces to the ground. And the angel of the Lord did not continue to appear to Manoach and to his wife. Then Manoach knew that he was an angel of the Lord. And Manoach said to his wife, We shall surely die, because we have seen God. But his wife said to him, If the Lord wanted to kill us, he would not have received from our hand a burnt offering and a meal offering, and he would not have shown us all these things, and at this time he would not let us hear such things as these. And the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. And the lad grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to come to him at times in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. All right, so that's the end of chapter 13. So this is the story of Samson, the foundational parts of the story from the tribe of Dan. The Philistines have been ruling over the Israelites for 40 years. Now, this woman is in the field, and I think it's very significant that the angel appears to the woman because it shows that she's quite a holy person, particularly compared to her husband. Her understanding of spiritual matters seems to be quite great. To explain, she doesn't hesitate to make sure her husband will come around the second time, right? So first she gets told, you're going to have a child and he will be a Nazirite. So recall in the Torah, the details of the Nazirite, a person who does not shave, who does not touch alcohol. It's basically like becoming a monk or an ascetic in relation to observance. And so your child will be that. And when he appears again, she's sitting in the field. So once again, why does it come to her? So I think it's really a blessing for her. And also the instructions are for her. This is important, right? Because it's got nothing to do with what the husband's doing. It's really what she has to do as the mother. Now, once it happens, Manoach, we see here that there is doubt. The way he speaks, he sort of has doubt and misunderstanding. And so he asks for clarification, right? So let's review here. So first, she tells her husband about it. Then she calls him the second time, and he starts asking the angel questions, and he doesn't understand that this is an angel. So he offers to make him, a meal, basically. Let me make you some lamb or a goat. Let me give you a kid goat. And he says, I'm not going to eat your bread, and you will make a burnt offering. And so this is where the real flaw of the husband, Manoach, is. He is misunderstanding and this is really the problem with all Israel. I think the reason that this is so significant, why is it the woman and why is Manoach like this? Look at how quickly he wants to make an honor of the man telling him the good news. The man is not the miracle worker. It's God, yet he wants to honor the man. And so he's trying to glorify the angel, and we see this routine problem. The same thing happens with Gideon. He initially doesn't realize that he's dealing with an angel, and then he goes, literally, oh my God, what have I done? So here we have a case of very close to false worship. The angel comes and bears the word, and the people falsely want to honor the angel when the angel is just the messenger. His name is not important. What's important is the message, and the honor goes to the Lord. So after this, they are told, I'm not going to come and take your offering, but if you want to make one to God. And so they put the goat up, and it says the angel does something wondrous. And again, this is what happened with Gideon as well. He places the food, and then the angel sends it up in a fire. So again, this is kind of the sign that it's the Lord, God of Israel, that has done this thing, and that the angel is acting on his behalf. And just like with Gideon, there's the fear of, oh no, we're totally going to die because we just gazed upon. And once again, Manoach says, we will surely die because we've seen God, but the wife understands. So she really is the holy one between the two of them, the one that has the spiritual understanding. One, if he wanted to kill us, he would not have accepted our offering. Two, he would not have shown us all the things we just saw, and three, he would not let us hear these miracles. So it shows that the man is of poor faith and poor understanding. He lacks the emunah. He also just doesn't get it. But she clearly has an understanding. And so as it happens, she gives birth to Samson, and he is blessed by the Lord. It says, the Spirit of the Lord began to come to him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. Moving on to chapter 14, verse 1. And Samson went down to Timnath, and he saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and mother, and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. So now take her to me for a wife. And his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brothers and among all my people, that you go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Take her for me, because she is pleasing in my eyes. Now his father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, that he sought a pretense against the Philistines. Now at the time the Philistines were ruling over Israel. And Samson and his father and mother went down to Timnath. And they came to the vineyards of Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared towards him. And there rested on him a spirit of the Lord, and he rent it as one would rent a kid, although he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father and mother what he had done. And he went down, and he talked concerning the woman, and she was pleasing in Samson's eyes. And he returned after a few days to take her. And he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees was in the body of the lion, with honey. And he separated it into his hands, and he went on eating as he went. And he went to his father and mother and gave them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had separated the honey from the body of the lion. Now his father went down concerning the woman, and Samson made there a feast, because the young men were accustomed to do so. And it was, when they saw him, that they took 30 companions, and they were with him. Now Samson said to them, "Let me ask you a riddle. If you can tell it to me within the 7 days of feasting, and you will guess it, then I will give you 30 linen sheets and 30 suits of clothing. But if you cannot tell me, then you shall give me 30 linen sheets and 30 suits of clothing." And they said to him, "Ask your riddle that we may hear it." And he said to them, "From the eater came out food, and out of the strong came out sweetness." But they could not tell the riddle for 3 days. And it was on the 7th day they said to Samson's wife, "Persuade your husband, so that he will tell us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you called us here to impoverish us?" And Samson's wife wept upon him, and said, "You only hate me, and do not love me. The riddle you have asked my people, but to me you have not told it." And he said to her, "Behold, to my father and mother I have not told it, and to you I shall tell it?" And she wept upon him the 7 days that their feast lasted. And it was on the 7th day that he told her, because she had tormented him, and she told the riddle to her people. And the men of the city said to him on the 7th day, before the sun set, "What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion?" And he said to them, "Had you not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." And there rested upon him a spirit of the Lord, and he went down to Ashkelon, and killed of them 30 men. And he took their clothing, and gave the suits to those who had told the riddle. But his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. And Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had accompanied him. End of chapter 14. So here we have a story of Samson's, let's call her first love. So he meets or sees a woman of the Philistines in Timnath, and he says, "Mother, father, I like that lady. I want to marry her." And they say, "Son, don't you want to marry an Israelite?" And he says, "No, I like her." Now they don't know. It says here that the reason for it was that God had actually made this happen. This whole thing, it was from the Lord that he sought a pretense against the Philistines. So in other words, this is a scenario meant to trigger the flames of war. This whole thing is meant to happen for that reason. So now we have the story. He goes, and him and his father and his mother, they go down, they go and they see a lion. And the lion, it roars at him, and the Spirit of God overcomes him, and he goes and he kills this lion with his bare hands. Very much, this is like Hercules, right, as some might recall. No, Heracles, the Greek, the idea of he can defeat this thing with his bare hands. This is what happens. So he's just really strong, and he kills it like one would kill a goat, only like a child, a kid, but he does it barehanded. So this is huge. And so he continues, and he goes to talk about, they talk about the woman, and okay, great. So the situation has been initiated. Then, as he's on his way back, he sees that the carcass of the lion that he had killed had now been converted into something of like a honey hive, right? The bees were swarming about the carcass of the lion. And so he's like, great, I'm going to have some honey. And so he goes and he grabs the honey, and he starts eating it, has a good old time, and he continues on, and he goes regarding the woman, right? His father goes down and finds that Samson made a feast. The feast was standard for the young men. And it says that when they saw him, they took 30 companions and they were with him. So he's got a basically like a feast, a party with 30 guys. They're all there to be there as part of the party. And he gives them a riddle. And he says, if you can solve my riddle, I will give you 30 garments, basically. And if you can't solve it, you'll give me 30 garments. And the whole thing is a very elaborate riddle. Nevertheless, they take the deal. And they say, tell us your riddle. And he says, from the eater came out food, and out of the strong came out sweetness. So 3 days go by. They can't figure this thing out. So 7th day, they go to his wife and they say, get your husband to tell us the riddle, lest we burn your father's house and you with fire, right? Have you called us here to impoverish? So in other words, they're threatening his new wife that they're going to kill her and her whole family for them losing this bet. So now she is terrified, and so she turns on her husband. She doesn't tell him the truth. She says, "You only hate me and do not love me. The riddle you've asked my people, but to me you've not told it." And he says, "Well, I haven't told my parents the riddle either." And so she's apparently crying upon him the 7 days that the feast lasts. So this is kind of strange. I am having a little trouble with this here. In terms of chronology, is a bit confusing. So it says he goes down and he has a feast, right? And so it says on the 3rd day, they can't figure it out. So it says that for 7 days she wailed. She wept upon him the 7 days that their feast lasted. So does that mean she started doing it for all 7 days before they even asked, or was it because she started on day 3 onward? So that's a little unclear. And whatever the case may be, is it because she was just crying from day 1, or she didn't start till day 3? It doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna keep moving along. And so right before the end of the 7th day, they say, "What is sweeter than honey and stronger than a lion?" And he says to them, "Had you not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." So what is the phrasing here is a matter of, how did they find out? So he either is literally, we could do this literally, they plowed with his heifer, or what they mean to say is, had you not used what was mine basically, had you not gone through my wife, you would not have figured it out. So he used that language, and he gets really mad, and so he goes down to Ashkelon and he kills 30 men and takes their clothing, and he gives it to the guys who won the riddle. But nevertheless, he's so disgusted, this pisses him off so much that his wife betrayed him, that they did this whole thing, that he just leaves. He says, I'm out of here. And so it says that Samson's wife was given to his companion who had accompanied him. Uh-oh. So Samson, to conclude, he gets betrayed because he tells her the riddle. She's just tormenting him. "Please, you hate me. And finally, he tells her the answer. She tells them. They say, "Haha, we figured out the riddle." And he says, "Yeah, this never would have happened if you didn't basically pester my wife or get the information from my wife." So he's so disgusted that he leaves, and they give the wife to someone else. Now moving on to chapter 15. "And it was after a few days in the time of the wheat harvest, and Samson remembered his wife with a kid, and said, 'I will come to my wife into the room.' But her father did not allow him to come in. And her father said, 'I said that you had utterly hated her, and I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Let her now be yours instead of her.' And Samson said to them, 'This time I shall be blameless from the Philistines when I will do them harm.' And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took torches, and turned tail to tail, and put one torch between every 2 tails in the middle. And he kindled the fire on the torches, and set them loose on the standing grain of the Philistines, and burnt up from the stacks to the standing grain, and to the vineyards and olive trees. And the Philistines said, 'Who has done this?' And they said, 'Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife, and has given her to his companion.' And the Philistines went up and burnt her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, 'Are you accustomed to do like this? Then I have to be avenged from you, and after that I shall cease.' And he struck them, the riders and the foot soldiers, with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam. And the Philistines went up and encamped in Judah, and spread out in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, 'Why have you come up against us?' And they said, 'To get you to bind Samson we have come up, to do to him as he has done to us.' And there went down 3,000 men from Judah to the cleft of the rock of Etam. And they said to Samson, 'Did you not know that the Philistines rule over us? Now what is this that you have done to us?' And he said to them, 'As they did to me, so have I done to them.'" And they said to him, "We have come down to bind you, to give you into the hand of the Philistines." And Samson said to them, "Swear to me, lest you strike me yourselves." And they spoke to him, saying, "No, however, we will bind you and give you into their hand, but we will not kill you." And they bound him with 2 new ropes, and brought him up from the rock. As he came up to Lehi, the Philistines shouted towards him, and there rested upon him a spirit of the Lord, and the ropes that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. And he found a moist jawbone of a donkey, and put forth his hand, and took it, and with it killed 1,000 men. And it was when he had finished speaking that he threw the jawbone from his hand, and called that place Ramath Lehi. And he became very thirsty, and called to the Lord, and said, "You have given through the hand of your servant this great deliverance, and now shall I die of thirst, and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" And God cleaved the socket which was in the jawbone, and water came out of it, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore he called its name En-Hakkore, which is in Lehi until this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. All right, so that's the end of chapter 15. So to quickly recap, after all is said and done, he remembers that he has his wife. So, he leaves and goes to, I will come to my wife into the room. So he goes down to the Philistines to go in Timnath to, get his time to consummate his marriage. And the father says, "Well, I told people that you hated her, and so I gave her to somebody else. But hey, how about you have her younger sister?" And Samson does not like this, and so he says, "This time I shall be blameless from the Philistines when I will do them harm." So, in other words, he's acknowledging that last time there was a degree of him being the one who screwed up, and it was not entirely their fault. Per se, like part of it was his own failure, but he says, this time, what I'm about to do, I'm justified. Nobody can blame me for it because you blew it. And so what he does is he commits massive arson. He catches 300 foxes, ties torches to them, between them, and then cuts them loose. And so what happens is these foxes run around and burn down all the crops of the Philistines. And now the Philistines are like, "Yo, who is responsible for this?" And they say it's because of Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he took up his wife and gave that wife to someone else. And so what did they do? They went and they burned her and her father with fire. So now Samson says, "Are you accustomed to do like this? Then I have to be avenged from you, and after that I shall cease." So what he's basically saying here now is, "Oh, well, you just murdered my wife and father-in-law, so now it's time for me to get revenge." Right? Are you accustomed to do like this? Or is it that he's saying, are you accustomed to doing these kinds of trickeries and switcheroos where you promise a woman to somebody and then try to pull a hoodwink on them? Whatever the case is, he's basically saying, yeah, I'm going to get mine. It's time to get even. And so he strikes them down. He slaughters the soldiers, and it's such a big deal. He's like, "Okay, well, I'm done now." And he goes and relaxes in some place. Well, the Philistines then go to the tribe of Judah, and they say, "We want you to bring us Samson because he caused us trouble. So we want to get even with him." And the people from Judah, they go to Samson and they say, "Do you understand that the Philistines are like our rulers? Do you understand what you've done here? That you've made a problem for us? And so we got to deliver you to them." And he says, "Well, I need you to make a promise to me. Swear to me that you will not strike me." And they say, "No, we've come to bind you, to give you over to them, but we will not kill you." And so they pretty much make the deal like, "We're not going to kill you," but they probably do rough him up a bit. Either way, they bring him over, but there's a pretty good chance that they roughed him up before doing so, and but they don't kill him. And so, they refuse to swear that they would not strike him. Nevertheless, they bring him to the Philistines with 2 fresh good ropes, but then as he's handed over, suddenly the Spirit of God overtakes him and the ropes just completely melt away. He grabs the jawbone of a donkey and he goes on a killing spree, kills 1,000 men with the jawbone. After that, he's so impressed, he throws the jawbone and he calls the place Ramat Lehi. Then he gets thirsty and he's like, wow, you deliver the enemy into my hand, to the hand of your servant, and now you're going to let me go thirsty and thus fall prey to them? And sure enough, the socket of the jawbone, suddenly water comes out of it. And so with this, he drinks and his spirit is returned, and he then renames it En HaKore, which is in Lehi. So from here, it says he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. And that concludes this week's episode of the book of Shoftim. We'll be continuing next time. I do find it very interesting. Samson is such a character, but we get to see a case of God makes Samson, or gives Samson, interest in this woman that he should not be interested in, but it turns out this whole thing was just to establish a precedent to justify striking down the Philistines. And so through Samson, this will be done, and he gives him just cause. So this is very important because, remember, we have issues where you'll have these countries saying, oh, you guys did this without provocation, it's your fault. Well, in this case, he had Samson get all caught up in this ordeal so that there would be a just cause for the provocation and escalation into warfare. And Samson's just too powerful. He's got God on his side, so naturally the end result is bad for everybody else. But he judges Israel, it says, for 20 years. Now, with that said, this miracle of the jawbone being his weapon, and then it spewing water. So it's interesting. He names it one thing and then he names it another thing. And so I think what's also special here, this is very familiar in relation to Moses with the rock, talk to the rock. So Samson was a strong guy. He's very thirsty. And he says to God, what? You're going to let me die of thirst here and let the uncircumcised claim me? And God immediately responds with a miracle, spewing water from that same jawbone. So this is a case of they have a direct relationship because of his vow from birth. He is able to invoke tremendous miracles and power. All right, well, we'll continue next time. That's it for this week's episode of the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll tune in then. Until that next time, as always, this has been Shmuel Moshe. I'll see you then. Baruch Hashem.